Hey, what you reading for?
Hello, beautiful people of YouTube. Welcome to the first installment of what might turn into a long-running series on this channel, Retro Horror, where I take a deepish dive into the work of one prominent horror writer from the past. If you enjoy the content, consider giving the video a like, consider subscribing to the channel. If you are interested in John Saul, there is a good chance you like your fiction dark and weird. I will pitch you my latest novel, Edifice Complex, a series of gruesome deaths resulting from a man's obsessive erotic relationship with a residential building set for demolition. Giving new meaning to the term homesick. Edifice Complex and my other books available in ebook or paperback. I'll leave descriptions and links in the description box. Thank you for your support. John Saul, born in California in 1942. Early in his career, he tried to pitch a manuscript to an agent. It was a gay mystery comedy. The manuscript, not the agent. And the agent said, well, I can't sell this book, sorry. But you have two nice four-letter names, which would look great in big blocks on a book cover. So I agree to represent you. We just need you to write something that's in the market. He tells her, I also have a thriller with trucks, so she sends it to a publisher, but the publisher says, I already have a thriller with trucks. What I do need is someone who will compete with this young guy, Stephen King. And John Saul, he says, who's Stephen King? I'll leave a link in the description box to a video where John Saul is telling this story himself, and I'll leave a timestamp as well. So John Saul, he's at the supermarket, and he sees a bunch of paperbacks, Salem's Lot, heavily featured. So he picks it up and he reads the back cover, and then he reads the back cover of several other similar books on display. And he says, well, I can do that. Yeah, Children in Peril with some supernatural elements, sure. And so he wrote Suffer the Children. It was a big hit, and he went on to have a long, successful, prolific career. Suffer the Children was published in 1977. It was his first published book, and it was my first experience with his work. What I liked about this book was how odd the tone is. It's like it wasn't written by a human, but rather by an alien who's been studying humans for a while and has almost got it down, but not quite. I mean, there are some traumatizing, dramatic events followed by the most ridiculous reactions or lack thereof. There's one scene where this guy, he has an episode, he blacks out and he attacks his young daughter while they're walking through the woods. And years later, this kid goes missing near this guy's house, so the police, they want to ask him some questions. And his secretary flips out. She's like, how dare they want to ask you questions about the missing kid just because of what you did to your daughter? That was like a year ago. And it's not like you molested her or anything, and you didn't even mean it. So how dare they ask you questions? Like, is that a reasonable reaction? No, there are no reasonable reactions in this book. And that's part of the book's charm. The supernatural elements aren't quite explained, which is nice, I think. I think it works to this book's advantage. Sometimes when supernatural elements are thoroughly explained, we get its origins, we get how it operates, what it wants, and how to defeat it. When that happens, sometimes it can render the supernatural element something less than. When the supernatural elements conform to the laws of nature, they conform to reason, they lose a bit of their supernatural quality sometimes. But here, the supernatural elements, they make sense. They're familiar. We've seen them before. A creepy doll in the attic, a sensitive child. But the supernatural elements aren't thoroughly explained, which works nice for the story. It's a good fit, especially with the odd tone that the book takes. And plus we have children being evil, which is always fun. So a few months later, I had my second John Saul experience when I read The Unloved. A man from the South, he moves to the North and he meets a woman and they get married and they have children. And years later, the guy's mother's health is failing. So the family, they go to the South, to this big estate, and they pay their final respects to this woman that this guy has been avoiding for decades. The mother is a tyrant, and she is especially cruel to her daughter, the protagonist's sister, whom she always wanted to grow up to be a ballerina. But her bad hip crushed those ambitions. The mother dies, and the tyranny is passed on down to the daughter. Just as the protagonist's daughter is starting to make friends in this local community, the guy, he decides that he wants the family to stay there and to turn the estate into a bed and breakfast resort, which is great, except that his daughter's friends start dying, which is not great. And her aunt is a lunatic, even worse than grandma. This is a very tropey book. It was published in 1988, but it reads like a prediction of what AI in 2024, 2025 would be like. It pulls all these familiar elements from the genre and mixes and matches them, and the characters are composites too, and they act in a way that is sort of human as people were back in the 1980s. The Unloved has its charms just as it has its flaws. Children in peril, supernatural elements that are too familiar to require any explanations, well-paced, tone slightly off, but appealingly so. After 2 experiences with John Saul's books, would I consider going back for a third? Sure, I would consider it. If I'm in the mood for a throwback, cheesy, tropey horror, which I could see that happening, then sure, a John Saul novel could be quite satisfying with those expectations. Do you have any experience with the work of John Saul? What is your favorite John Saul novel? Do you prefer it when the supernatural elements are thoroughly explained, or do you enjoy embracing the unknown with the supernatural? I always enjoy connecting with you in the comment section. Thank you for watching. I'll see you at the next video.